We want to send things over now to Chris Costa, who is in our newsroom, and with our political analysts, Betsy Sweet and Garrett Mason. Hey there, Chris.
Hey, Brian and Amanda. We actually have some results coming in, and I put an asterisk around the word some because these are some very small towns. But if you can kind of see, we have some colored dots here on this map. So Waterford is one that's got 92% of precincts reporting. Fayette's got 94% of these votes counted so far. And then we have some of these ones that are a bit darker. Excuse me. Let's see if we can get a nice little touch on that one right there. That's tricky. Let's see if we can zoom in. Oh, it's Etna. There you go. 93% of the votes counted there. So we're going to go through these with Garrett and Betsy. And guys, you guys were remarking as we looked at some of these presidential tallies. Is there really any indication with so few cities and towns in Missouri? We can't make any real clear.
I don't think yet. I think the biggest indication is that we don't have any results yet, or significant results yet in Maine, and I think that speaks a lot to voter turnout. Because usually by this time we know something.
There's
We've got some trending. We've got some races called. I mean, there are a few that are ready, but I think really what we're seeing is that there's a huge turnout across the state. And I don't think we know what that means yet.
No, and I think I was talking to folks back home. There's still people voting in Lisbon right now.
Yeah,
there's huge lines there. So I mean, usually in Maine, and as someone who's been on the ballot a few times, you have something by 9 o'clock, and it's nothing. So,
and that you're saying is an indication of how many people in Maine who were registered to vote or maybe registered today actually came up and turned in a ballot.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting, I think one of the things we're going to see this time, which is going to be really interesting to see, is historically high voter turnout favored Democrats.
Yes.
And that's what and so I think what we're seeing nationally, and I think we're seeing it here in Maine too, is really the looking at the gender gap, because Trump was trying to get out those low propensity voters, male people who don't generally vote. Harris is trying to get out the high propensity women vote, make sure they get and switch some of them. So I think I think we're going to see some of that play out. I certainly think that we're seeing it nationally.
Let's go through some of these towns, at least for the presidential race. You guys can give me a yes or no if these results surprise you. Just bear with me here because we're going to have to zoom in and out. So it may be a little herky-jerky, but just bear with me here for a second. So we get a town, actually we'll go back to the one we were just on, town like Harrington. Got 93% of the votes and goes pretty much overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. Not a surprise there?
Not a surprise at all, no.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Let's see if we can get to this one right here. This is Otis.
Yeah. Also not a surprise.
Same deal.
99% of the votes, and you get about 500 people in that town. So, again, I think what we're noticing here is that there's such a small number of votes in for what the 1.3, well, actually, that's not all the registered voters, but however many registered voters there are, there's really not enough here.
Yeah. But I think now VZ, this one is a little surprising, I think.
I think that shows a change in population. I think, as a suburb of Bangor, it is growing. And I can't say I'm surprised by that number. There still is 15% left to go. Yeah. But I would expect to see Donald Trump doing a little bit better there.
It's a shift. I think it's a little bit of a shift.
Yeah.
But I think we're seeing that a lot of places, as Maine, as our cities become more unaffordable to live in. I think we're seeing people move, and that's true for Portland, it's true for Lewiston, it's true for Bangor. People are moving out into what have been traditionally more rural, conservative suburbs, if you will, of those cities. So,
we had let's see, this was Waterford, I believe. Yep, that one going pretty close for Trump there with 92% of the votes counted. Did this one surprise you at all? Newry in that same county, in neck of the woods, Oxford County?
Yeah, I mean I would expect that to go even. That's outside of Sunday River.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably some more wealthy, left-leaning folks that would vote there. I'd have to look back, but I think that's Donald Trump should be doing better there.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised at that.
And also, keep in mind, probably some of those people seasonal homes, right? They're not living there
at
all
all.
the
But I
time.
think a lot of those people, right, during COVID, a lot of people who had seasonal homes in places like that ended up staying and they didn't leave.
And we also saw a big influx of people moving to Maine during the pandemic. So that maybe that's an indication of the VZ shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we have on here. And then we should probably switch to House and Senate at some point. Aetna here, again, no surprise. So I guess really the takeaway for the viewers who are watching right now is that these are very small towns where the votes have been able to be counted quickly.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Yeah.
We won't see the Portlands, the Lewistons, Augustas, Auburns for quite some time, you thinking?
I think they're still voting.
Yeah, I know.
They
You're
can't
saying
close out the
Lisbon.
machines,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it's
But
going to be
once they're done voting, we should see it pretty quickly because they're all electronic machines, and
And I would imagine there are now processing absentee ballots, and that's what usually takes the longest. So I mean, I do think it will speed up, but there's going to be a delay.
Yeah.
Okay, for sure.
Okay, and we actually had mentioned earlier, right, about 40%. Well, it was closer to about a third, right, of Maine's of the eligible voters who had registered, right, had as of 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And there could be more that turn in their
Yes.
their absentee ballots up until 8 p.m.
Huge
right?
percentage.
And so we're waiting for those to come through. Let's go to the House, right? Obviously, the tightest race, CD2, Jared Golden and Austin Terrio. We do have a couple of results in. Let's go down here and see what we have. So here's another one, Waterford, where the votes are already in.
but look at how tight that race is.
Very tight, yeah.
I mean, and that I would think. Well, I don't know. I can't tell because I don't think Jared is a traditional Republican. Traditional Democrat.
Right.
So I think he attracts more Republicans.
Number,
but
I wouldn't imagine the Terrio campaign is thrilled with that number.
yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can get this one right outside of Augusta here. Sorry, that's not Livermore Falls. Let's get it right there, and then we'll zoom back out. Fayette, again, another one that's pretty close with 92% of the votes counted.
Yeah, and if you looked at what happened that's interesting because in the presidential race that we just saw, Trump won Fayette,
Right.
and so this is interesting. It's the same number of votes counted. So this is interesting that Trump is winning and Jared is winning.
And
That's significant.
That is, yep. And there's something to be said, and I think every pollster who's polled CD2 would tell you the Trump golden voter is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, the
Oh.
Trump
Yeah.
golden
Yeah.
voter
We
is
saw
like
those signs.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of lawns where they had Trump and golden signs.
Yep.
So this is kind of that question we were talking about much earlier in the evening, where we may not necessarily see a presidential candidate leaning all the way.
Yeah.
That party playing all the way down ballot.
Maine love to split their ticket.
Yeah.
Mainers love that.
VZ, again, that one that you had surprised you for president, not very close at all, with 84% of the votes.
Yeah,
in.
way bigger.
Yeah,
that's a big margin for Jared.
That is a big margin.
Yeah, you can't
and
love that for
definitely
Austin.
as a suburb of Bangor, probably should be doing better there.
Okay, let's see if we can pick one or two more before we move on to Senate. I know those races we've still got to get to as well. Let's see. So we've got Littleton, 89% of the votes in, leaning heavily Terrio. Let's see if we can get another one here while we have some time.
Yeah.
Mattawamkeag, again, these are none of these
surprise.
Are real surprises here. Let's go
No.
to this right here, which I believe is Harrington. Oops, let's get that off of there. Sorry, guys.
And
again.
those and Washington County and Aroostook County are going to be key for Austin Terrio.
Yeah.
And if he's not pulling those numbers, he doesn't have a chance. He is, and that's where he needs to be in places like that.
Yeah.
All right, want to move on to the Senate?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Let's see here. See if we can zoom in here, because this one is a little bit lighter on the colors, right?
Yeah.
So some of those other ones we can say pretty definitively with the 90s,
Yeah.
the 95s, and 99%. A lot of these dots that you're seeing, you may not even be able to see them because they're so faint.
Yeah.
This is what they do, right?
mean percentage, yeah.
Intentionally leave them that lighter shade if we don't really have the full number of votes in. Right outside of Portland, let's go to Gorham. That's a big one. 24% of the votes in. You've got a sizable lead for Angus King. Can you make much of what that is out of 24% of the votes counted? Can you put stock in
I
that?
think Angus is going to get over 50%.
I think that's true, and Gorham obviously has grown leaps and bounds over the past 15 years, and you'll probably see that number for Angus King, come in the 5,000 range by the time this is ending tonight. That's a good result for Angus King.
All right, let's look out here. Let's see. There we go. Waterford. Surprised it's that close or no?
I am a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
This is another situation, because we had the Waterford numbers from the other races. This is the voters in Waterford are throwing their votes all over the place.
All over the place,
So,
right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can pick one more. Do you want to go to VZ again, or do you want to try?
Well, VZ's more interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
VZ is
Because
interesting.
that one we know it's going to happen up there.
Let's do that. All right. And that's
Yeah,
with 85%
okay.
of the votes in, Angus King leading the way on
Yeah.
that one.
And I would say that Demi Kazunas is overperforming there.
Yeah, I would say I would too.
Yeah.
Especially given how
Yep.
Harris was winning. So
Yep, she's definitely overperforming there.
Okay,
now,
awesome.
okay, so that's interesting. That might be a gender gap issue,
Yeah, it could be.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
so we saw Harris way performing in VZ, and then Demi overperforming. I mean, she's not beating King, but she's overperforming. And so there might be women who are saying, you know what, I'm just voting for women.
Okay. We're going to see if we can get a couple more results and kind of boost those votes.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Vote
Otherwise, we're going to be
totals
very
counted.
tired.
I know.
We're going to finish this thing. Betsy and Garrett, thank you very much. We'll come back to you guys in just a minute. And Brian and Amanda will send it back to you on the desk.
All right, Chris Costa, thank you so much.